Hey everybody, how's it going? Thank you so much for joining us for this December dev update. This will be our first ever dev update through a video. Thank you everybody on our WeFunder platform who are our wonderful investors who are joining us today and watching this video. Thank you for everybody who's not an investor but just interested in following along with this project and what we do here at Azure Ravens. Without the support of everybody, none of this stuff would be possible, so thank you so much for joining us. Really quick, I want to do a quick outline and then introduce my two co-hosts for today. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to go over that introduction to myself and my two co-hosts. Then we're going to talk a little bit about our studio, talk about some of the contract work that we've been working on, some of the progress being made on some of our more unannounced titles, talk about some cool advancements on Goblin Forge VR, and talk about, what everybody's here for, Ravenwood, and how that's going and the development for that. Then we're going to kind of dive into the high-level production timeline. We're going to take a look at what the publisher demo and vertical slice really is. Talk a little bit about some UE5 stuff that we've been doing with Unreal Engine. Then we're going to go over a little bit of our fundraising needs, take a look at some financials and some forecasts for our production budget, and then talk about some of the options that we're going to go through to raise funding. So thank you all again for joining us. Let's just jump right into it. My name's Corbin Reeves, and I am the founder and creative director here at Azure Ravens Entertainment. I got into the games industry a few years ago with my first job as a narrative designer. And then from there, I really wanted to focus on sustainability here in Michigan. I've been really active in the Michigan community, and I started the studio alongside Connor and Amelia and a few others here at the studio. And we started off with some contract work, and it kept getting more and more out of hand, and we started doing more and more awesome things. And then before I knew it, we were here working on Ravenwood and having you guys support us on everything that we're doing. So thank you so much for that. But let me take a moment to introduce Connor, who is directly above me. Hey Connor, how's it going?
Good talking to you. Hi, I'm Connor. I'm the lead gameplay engineer at Azure Ravens. I've been in the games industry for, I guess, 5 years since Azure Ravens was founded. I always kind of had a passion for games. I've always been interested in designing games, writing for games, and I seem to have found my niche in programming for games. So I'm having a great time doing that.
Awesome. Antonio, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is to be like a lead investor here at WeFunder for Azure Ravens?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Antonio. I've been in the business development space for a little bit more than a decade now, actually. I work professionally within this cool overlap between the games industry and the nonprofit sector. And so I've had the privilege of working on international campaigns, working with content creators and audiences and communities all around the world through other game studios that I partner with through my clients. I actually had the privilege of meeting the Azure Raven folks through the charity work that I do here in Michigan, where we teach students in the after school space how to program using game design and digital arts. And so that'll really be the lens that I'll be using and trying to help and plug all of our amazing investors and community members and supporters here into what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So as the lead investor, Antonio is the voice for our WeFunder investment team. One of the things that we're going to be trying to do here is making sure that we're getting questions from you guys in our community, answering those questions for you, and kind of having Antonio propose those questions in a way that kind of gets you the answers you're looking for. Antonio will also be helping to dive in and kind of keep us transparent. Transparency here at Azure Ravens is a core tenet and value of us. Today we're going to talk about some nitty-gritty financials and talk about our publishing timelines and talk about how those things kind of evolve and change. We're going to give you a behind-the-scenes look that most studios would avoid. I'd love to say that Azure Ravens' focus on transparency makes us great. And in my opinion, it really does. It makes everybody at the team confident in what we're doing. It makes everybody who's working with us confident that we're delivering what we say we are. And I hope that as we go through this process, you all start to feel that same kind of trust in the process that we've kind of been cultivating here at the studio. So, awesome. Thank you guys so much. Let's dive into some of our contract work, Connor. Let's talk a little bit about that, give some studio updates here. So first and foremost, we're getting pretty close to closed beta with Project SS, aren't we?
Yeah, no, it's supposed to be releasing closed beta next week. It's been a lot of fun getting to this point. We've been working on it for 2 years now.
Yeah, 2.5 almost.
yeah, almost 2.5 years now. And so I'm really excited to get it out there and get the feedback from everybody and see how much they love it. You know, it's got a lot of love. So
Oh yeah. So we can't
yeah.
talk about Project SS too much right now. We're still under NDA. We're chomping at the bit to mention it, but we're going into open beta when?
Should be the beginning of February.
Okay.
Depending on how closed beta goes. That's the goal is beginning of February. So
Awesome.
which will be awesome.
So our hope is that at our February developer update, we can give you guys all kind of a heads up about what we've been working on and get you guys registered for this open beta. You know, we do a lot of client work here. We've been transitioning out of it to focus more on Goblin Forge and Ravenwood. But that said, we've still been working on these projects, and we're not just going to dump them and walk away. We want you guys to be involved, give us some feedback, help us improve it for our client that we've been working so diligently with. The other project that I want to talk about is Planet Pink Mobile. That project kind of came out of nowhere. Nancy Hahn reached out to us. She's a rather prolific children's author, and she's also really big with the iHeartRadio crowd, working with the young sevens and children. And she reached out to us to see if we could make one of her books basically come to life with a game. And that's where Planet Pink Mobile came about. And as we built this game kind of based around her universe, this educational game, you know, we were working with them really diligently and closely to make sure that they got exactly what they wanted. And as we delivered the project when Connor, middle of last month, I think?
Middle of last month, yeah.
And they were absolutely blown away. And they decided that what they were going to do, instead of just releasing the project and saying, okay, cool, on to the next big thing for Nancy and Nancy Bell Studios, they decided instead they wanted to start crowdfunding and starting to reach out to venture capital groups themselves to try to get some funding raised for about 20 more games for what they're now calling their play-to-learn metaverse. This is a massive contract that we're now looking at, and we're... I think I can mention this, Connor. You think we're probably fine to mention this, right? We've got about... we have a tentative agreement currently to make about 20 more games for them, like I mentioned, all throughout 2023 and 2024. 2022 is almost over here. I mean, we're in the December update.
Yeah.
We have how much left, Antonio? You're muted. I'm sorry.
That was my mime impression. For the next 27 days, I was going to say.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll be working diligently for at least the next 27 days. And then all of 2023 and 2024. But, yeah, so, I mean, this is a massive contract for us. And what we've already started to do is we started to sit down and kind of forecast. Nancy and her co-partner, Bob, have been working really diligently with a couple of VCs and venture capital groups in the local area that they've already partnered with for some of their previous work that they've done, publishing children's books and creating iHeartRadio stations. And so it's looking like they're definitely on track, it looks like, to secure their funding. And we plan to use the profits from that to kind of help us focus on Ravenwood and complete more of our major milestones that we want with that, which I'm really excited about personally. I think it'll also help us when we approach VCs for like the future of the company. One of our big goals here is to kind of publish and kind of raise the tide of the local Midwestern area and focus on local Midwestern products. And so using some of the profits from that to help kind of publish some other titles as well could be really beneficial for our company in the long run. Aside from that, Connor, do you want to tell us a little bit about Goblin Forge VR and what's coming on with that in the next couple of months?
Yeah, Goblin Forge is getting ready to go into early access at the end of December here. It's, again, been a couple years of development. It's a really, I'm really excited to see the feedback everyone has. It's an awesome blacksmithing VR game where you get to create whatever kind of weapons you want and interact with these adorable little goblins that are messing around in your shop. And I'm really excited to see everyone get to play it and enjoy it.
Yeah, so we're going to be launching on Oculus Early Access Stores The Hope, as well as the Steam Early Access Store for the Oculus Quest and the HTC Vive and the Valve Index headset. So we're hoping to have the Early Access trailer somewhere in the beginning of December. I know we're in the beginning of December, so hopefully in the next week or so. And then we're hoping to launch into that Early Access, like Connor said, by the end of the month. And we've been so excited for this. Yeah, Antonio, I don't know if we've gotten a chance to get you into play Goblin Forge VR, have we?
No, not yet. I've heard a lot about it and have just been like really excited to see the progress on that and just see like the Azure Ravens like thumbprint, just like your world building applied to that as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it next chance I get.
Awesome. We'll definitely have to get you in here soon to test it out. It's been something that we've been working pretty passionately on in the background as we've done our contract work, and it's kept the team busy. Ravenwood's right now the major focus, but we've still got a few people here in the shop. I mean, we have 10 people working here. We've still got a few who are kind of working, getting Goblin Forge ready for that early access launch. So we're excited to see what that does for the company here. Awesome. Well, I think that's all we have for our overview of our studio updates. Let's just jump right into our timeline and start talking about our production timeline from a high level. Let's take a look at what we've got here. Bam. All right, so we have our production roadmap on the screen now. And so, in Q3 of 2022, we got our first batch of funding released from WeFunder. We were able to unleash the team and let them go at it and kind of figure out what our cost metrics were to kind of build assets and develop for Ravenwood. We were also able to use that to start mapping out our production schedule and come to a pretty confident statement that, Q3 of 2024 we'll be able to release the game, which for us is really exciting. That's a really aggressive timeline, but it's something that we're pretty confident that we can do. At this point, we've gotten really good at estimating how long it'll take us to do things with all of the contracts that we've completed and deliveries that we've done. We collect a ton of metric data on how long it takes to build assets, how long it takes to program mechanics. So we're really excited about that. Quality standards are a huge thing here at Azure Ravens. If it's not up to snuff, we'll push it back. But the first people to know that will be you guys here in our dev updates. That's kind of the whole goal, is to keep you apprised as we're working on this so that you know early and that nobody's ever shocked by the decisions we make and that you guys are actually a part of that process as well. Q4, that's where we are right now. We're in Q4 of 2022. We've been building this vertical slice, this publisher demo, and we've started to kind of get together some first playables so that you guys can kind of play some of the game, and so that we can show this off to publishers and get some thoughts and feedback from them and see if they're interested in helping to fund and publish it. We've also been developing the story, and some of the main content has been developed in mass as well. We're also pulling in some more concept art constantly, which you guys saw on the screen before with some of our concept art kind of flashing in the background. And we keep pulling more and more concept art so that we've always got stuff to work from. So with this vertical slice / publisher demo hopefully being complete by the end of this year, we're hoping that in Q1 of 2023, we have started our publisher talks and secured our funding. So it can move really fast at this stage. Once we start talking to publishers, it can be a really accelerated process. It could also take a little while, which is kind of why we gave the whole quarter for it. The first person we talk to could be like, yes, absolutely. We see the vision. We love the product. Let's make it happen. Or it could be the, 50th person we talk to. That's just kind of the name of the industry and how it works. But we have a bunch of publishers that we've already scouted. We have some phenomenal advisors who've already connected us to a bunch of really interested funders and partners. And so I'm really excited to kind of chase down those avenues. We're also closing our WeFunder in February. And in preparation for that close, we are revamping the webpage entirely. And we're going to be publishing more updates like this so that you guys can kind of see it and get hyped and get excited and share these to people to kind of show like, hey, this is what they're doing. This is the progress they're making. Like, go check it out. We talked with WeFunder a little bit, and they were like, the closing months, that January, February time for you guys, expect to have a lot more traffic to your page. So we said, you know what? We're stepping out of friends and family, and we're stepping into the general public. So let's make sure that we make that page look as appealing as the conversations that I've had with so many of you. So we've been working on that, and we're hoping that that comes out here in the next week or so. So once you see it, let us know, leave some comments, tell us about it, give us feedback. I'm always looking to kind of evolve based on your guys' feedback. And then beyond Q1 of 2023, well, we've got our funding, we're secured, we're ready to go. Well, we're going to run full steam ahead to build the game, but we're also going to focus on building a community around our game. One of the biggest things that we got to not neglect here is marketing. And I got to tell you, there is nobody else I'd rather have in our corner than Antonio here to help us out with navigating that marketing journey. And on top of that, we've been looking at some additional industry partners to kind of partner for our marketing efforts to make sure that we are all navigating them successfully. Our goal is to launch on multiple platforms from Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and PC. And so to do that, part of that is navigating that marketing waters. Like, how do we make sure that everybody knows where it's coming out on and where it's going to be released from? And so we've been looking to partner with some more people to make sure that we can do that successfully. Antonio, do you have any major questions about the roadmap or anything like that you feel like we should highlight more?
Well, I'll tell you what, it feels a little bit like, from a marketing standpoint, it feels a little bit like cheating when all we have to do is help folks get excited about the kind of products that you have in store that everyone at home's about to see. So thanks for making that part pretty cut and dry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, have we really talked about what a publisher demo or a vertical slice is anywhere? I don't think so. I don't think we've posted anything about what the vertical slice or publisher demo really looks like. So let's go a little bit into depth on what that actually is and what that means. So a vertical slice or a publisher demo is a tool for us to showcase to publishers who are other game devs and say, hey, this is our vision for the product. It's not something that we would take to like E3 and show off to the general public and be like, aha, come play Ravenwood. Because it's really not Ravenwood yet. It's really early stage mechanics. I mean, we're talking about something that we started building in Q3 to now. We're talking about, 3 or 4 months of development time, really early blockouts. Some of it's finished art, but a lot of it's like a chance for us to show them, here's what farming looks like in Ravenwood. Here's what blacksmithing looks like in Ravenwood, one of our crafting classes. Here's what one of our combat classes looks like. Here's how fishing works in Ravenwood. And it also lets us show them, here's the story, here's how we package it, and here's our kind of vision for our art direction. And this lets us really talk to the publishers about why we think our product stands out from other games like Coral Island, Cloud Puff Island, Story of Seasons, and Stardew Valley. What makes Ravenwood the farming lifestyle RPG that it is, and makes it so much different than everything else that's currently on the market or coming out in the next year or two. I mean, we've got a lot of awesome competition coming out, and I gotta tell you, I have never been more excited for this market. One of the things that I always like to tell people is the more games coming out in a genre, the more excitement you'll see from people who love that genre. Games are not like... These kind of games aren't pick one and stay there forever. They're always looking for the next kind of content to dive into. They're always looking for what's different. And Story of Seasons, Stardew Valley, all of those games, they might not be your cup of tea. Maybe you don't love the farming, grow the town, meet somebody, maybe get married in the game, and kind of just expand your ranch. Maybe you're looking for something more. Maybe you're looking to craft, make awesome weapons. Find some crafting that doesn't just feel like a click of the button and then it just makes the weapon. Maybe you're looking to explore and compete in some combat or uncover hidden mysteries that you could find in our really robust world we've been designing. And that's what we've been building Ravenwood for. And that's what this vertical slice publisher demo is really for, is to show publishers, venture capital groups, and angel investors why they should join you all in supporting us. And so I'm really excited for that process. We're also building it in UE5. And so we're working with Epic Games' Unreal Engine 5, and we also plan to kind of reach out to Epic Games and kind of pursue that Epic Mega Grant. And the Epic Mega Grant is a large amount of money that Epic Games has kind of set aside for us. Not us per se, but for indie game dev creators. I wish they'd set it aside for us. That'd be awesome, right? But they've set it aside for indie game devs, and it's a chance for us to apply for it and say, hey, we're making something in Unreal Engine 5 that's unique and new, and we would love your support. And they take a look at it and they say, you know what? We see the vision, we see the direction, we love what you're trying to do, and we love what you're trying to make happen. And they provide us with grant funding that has no obligation to pay it back and no obligation to release on the Unreal Engine store, which is really exciting. They're really just saying, we want to see more awesome created projects in the world. And that's a mission that I can get behind personally. I love the idea of that. And that's something that we definitely think we have going for us. We're one of the first couple of game studios to be on WeFunder and to do crowdfunding. We have that focus on that crowd-owned game studio. It's a something we keep saying, but it's not just a marketing tagline for us. That's something that I really truly believe in. Like I said, transparency is huge for me. I meet with Antonio. I meet with all of our advisors to get their thoughts and feedback. Instead of us just building in a bubble, I really like to reach out and talk to the community around us and say, hey, what do you think of this? What are your thoughts? Give us your feedback early. We want to make the game that you want to play. That's our goal. Is there any other major things that we can talk about when it comes to the next steps in funding? Antonio, can you think of anything major that we could talk about?
Well, I think I think when you're looking at a budget, it's important to consider that in context of like the roadmap. Like it's easy to say these are the plans we have. This is how much we believe it's going to require in order to invest and make these things material and make them happen. But also, when you look at that and also consider what is the intended output, I think it's important to also think about in terms of roadmaps and schedules. And this is part of the reason why I love our conversations, and I love the collaborative way, like the two-way street that every conversation we have about progress on the games feels. It's that they're sometimes, especially when you're working with new tech, especially when you're working and discovering things like what UE5 has, what it has in store, how it's going to heighten the experience for the gamers, what it's like using the build on. Anyone who's in Corbin's chair that's going to pretend like they're not going to encounter some sort of unknown is lying to you, because unknowns happen, right? And I think what I really appreciate about the way that Corbin runs the studio and the way that the team operates is that they really do create that environment where they can have that honest dialogue, where they can communicate with each other, because from the standpoint of the success of the product and getting the product to market, right, you need to be able to have that communication. You have to have that, this term gets thrown a lot, but you need to have that safe space where folks can say, hey, listen, we're kind of encountering this thing. Can we, I need help, or what can we do to try and put our heads together and figure this out? And I just feel like that collaborative spirit really shows up in the quality of the product and the quality of the design and the concept art, and just really how they're trying to bring this game to reality. So yeah, I feel like if there are any hiccups or bumps, they're going to happen. Expect them. But I think I think what we to Corbin's point, what we want to do is bring you into the fold and have that be a part of the conversation, have that be a part of the dialogue that we want to share. And so that way, when the bumps do occur, they're not really they're not going to be that surprising. And also they're probably, going to be something that we can surmount, and you'll be brought into that mix where your feedback can be taken in and weighed. And so again, the ultimate goal is just that, what's that experience for the player look like? And I think just the processes that are being used right now, especially within the confinements of the budget, I'm excited. I'm optimistic. I think the product's going to speak for itself.
Yeah, I really appreciate that for sure. We've definitely run into our fair share of hiccups with UE5. We've had some fun there, huh, Connor?
Yeah, no, it has its pro. Like, I love UE5, and I've really enjoyed learning and getting to delve deeper into some of the new tech that came out with it. I'm really excited about the world partitioning system and how we're going to take advantage of that and utilize that to build a variety of different cells and places for the players to go and interact with. And yeah, it has its, there's those moments where you really get into it and you're like, what is happening right now? But always, though, the team we have, everyone around us, we do a really good job of being able to overcome any of these issues. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think my favorite bug so far is the fact that in certain locations I can fish in the ground. That's entirely my fault. I've been rebuilding the town from scratch lately. But it's been really entertaining because I was walking through the new town that we've been rebuilding. We really weren't happy with the first version of the town. As I walked through it, I couldn't get over the fact that it felt like it wasn't good enough. It felt like it wasn't enjoyable to move through. And so we decided that, what we're going to do is we're going to rebuild it from scratch. And as I'm doing this, I'm dropping little bodies of water inside the town, little lakes here and there to kind of build out and flesh out the world. And then I was walking through town and all of a sudden there's this little pop-up and it's like, you can fish here. And I'm like, I am in the middle of a street. What do you mean? What did I break? I went fishing. I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's see what happens. But
I'll fish.
yeah,
Hilarious.
but
But I love that, frankly. I mean, as an investor, I love that. That's kind of something that I would want to hear. You know, especially when the currency for projects like this and for products like this is quality. To hear that sort of attention to detail and to hear that bar, you know, that standard that you want to set. You know, sometimes you do need to have, you know, the courage to be like, look, we're not satisfied with this thing. We're either gonna start over or we're just gonna overhaul it, because you know you value, in a lot of ways, you value your customers' time. You know, you're valuing, like, hey, there's any other game you could be playing right now, this is worth restarting over and getting it right. So I mean, that's that kind of thinking is music to my ears.
yeah, no, I love that. You know, one of the things that we really do here is we focus on quality. You know, I'm not a perfectionist. I understand that art is done when it's done, not when it's perfect. You'll never find that perfect state. There's always more to tweak and adjust. But one of the cool things about working with you and our other advisors, Antonio, is the chance to kind of get you guys to see kind of behind the scenes at some of the stuff we're building and give us that early feedback. I mean, we had the opportunity on Tuesday this past week to take a look at the blacksmithy. And I've got the picture of the first floor of the blacksmith up right now for us all on stream here. But, you know, we were taking a look at it, and Jordan and you had so much awesome feedback for us, and you really helped me kind of define the character a little bit more. Because our blacksmith has two big characters here. We have Alden, the main blacksmith, and we have his daughter, who we haven't announced just yet, so we can't go too deep into her backstory or her character. But Alden is a blacksmith with a passion and a penchant for creating awesome and wonderful things. But he's not the necessarily cleanest gentleman around. You know, he's a blacksmith. He's a hardworking guy. His daughter, on the other hand, is an absolute neat freak. And one of the things that we had some fun talking about is there's a little bit of soot here in our concept artist, that our concept artist put together. But as we were looking at the environment, we said, you know what? This needs to be dirtier, with this clear demarcated line at the fence post where it's like, hey, bam, there is nothing beyond that. It is clean, because right now, Alden works over in the forge, and his daughter tends to work behind the counter selling the items that he crafts and his apprentices craft. And so we really wanted to try to tell you about the person through the environment in which they live. And that was a really fun conversation to dive in with you.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I think if you don't mind me nerding out a little bit more in your process.
Please.
Yeah, I think that's something, especially in games that you'll find in the indie category. I think that's something that is a huge opportunity that very few titles kind of pull off successfully, and that's that attention to treating the environment as if it were a character. And I feel like some of the games that are successful with that are the ones that are remembered, because it just adds to that immersion, it adds to that experience, it adds to that relationship that you're helping the player build with the characters in just a unparalleled way. You know, sort of even the detail with you know, the characters are going to interact with each other. They have the relationships. They're going to interact with you. They're going to have expectations of you know each other and you. But the environment kind of is another way for you. You're almost like, you know, when you go to a new, like the blacksmith shop, like you showed me the other day. It's almost like jumping into a collage, like like the head of you know these characters, you know, or maybe like a collective head of like the relationship that they have. And so you can learn a lot about the characters through the missions and through, like, you know, reading the dialogues and whatnot. But I think it's just really interesting when you make the environment another character, when you make the environment a way for the player to learn about how do these characters view the world, how do they view themselves, what are their motivations. And I just think that's a really hard thing to do when your emphasis on a game is on things other than story. Like with a game like Ravenwood, like what you're building, the emphasis is story. That is the, you know, essentially the product. That's the currency. What customers are going to measure it against. And when you are using absolutely all the colors that are on your palette, so to speak, environment is just such a big one of them that I think is not only very hard, it's a very intimidating plate to step up to, I feel like, for a game designer. I mean, you can you know, let me know if you agree, but I think from the customer experience, like from the user, the player experience, it's just so appreciated. it really delivers on our expectation, our want to escape, to just
Yeah.
live a different life and go through a different experience and have that be part of part of that itch we're trying to scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I pulled the upstairs up for the blacksmithy right now to kind of get a look, and yeah, I completely agree with you. Using, as you said, all of the colors on our palette, we start off here with this concept art that's kind of given to us by our concept artist, with really just a brief statement of, hey, this is who they are, this is the space that they occupy in. Can you give us an early stage mock-up? And this concept will evolve as time goes on, as we start working in it. We've built this upstairs entirely at this point, and it's started to get textured. And one of the conversations we started to have is it doesn't really feel lived in right now when you see it. It almost looks like a little perfect diorama, which makes sense when you consider the daughter's penchant for cleanliness. But Alden's lack of cleanliness isn't really represented here. And not to say that he's like a dirty, unwashed person. He's just covered in soot. He's a hardworking guy. He gets off work, goes upstairs, gets changed, goes downstairs, goes out to eat, comes back, goes right back to work. He's not really caught up on the thought process of there's soot in my house. Well, of course there's soot in my house. I'm a blacksmith. But so we started talking about, how can we evolve his room a little bit? Maybe his bed's not made perfectly. Maybe there's a pile of soot-covered clothing in the floor. Maybe there's a random nail hammered into a wall where Alden kind of leaves his... he's missing a hand, so he has a blacksmith hammer for a hand instead and some other tool attachments. Maybe he just sets it on the wall, like, okay, yep, this is good enough. Like he has a chest that he could put it in. He has a wardrobe he could put it in. Nah, just put it on the wall. It needs to be easily accessible. And maybe his room itself still has like soot, footsteps in it, but the rest of the house perfectly clean. And part of the way that we also do that is outside of just the environment, we want the characters to kind of interact with each other as things happen to make the world really feel alive. And one of the fun little Easter eggs that we kind of plan to put in there, and I guess it's not really an Easter egg, but it might be something that you might miss if you didn't hear this conversation. As his daughter's behind the shop working, when Alden walks to leave the store or go upstairs, he leaves a trail of soot-covered footprints. And if the daughter's in the presence when that happens, she's gonna like call out to him and say like, "Hey, I just sweeped there. What are you doing?" And he's gonna be like, "Whoop," and then kind of like scurry out, almost as if like a small child being caught by a parent when the roles are kind of reversed there. And I think that's really fun to kind of like drive home the fact that it's like, he's this big blacksmith who goes in there and does his work, hammers away at metal all day right next to a burning forge with such passion, but can be immediately kind of caught by his daughter who's like, "Hey, don't make a mess. We talked about this." And he just kind of like scurries out of the room. And I think those kind of things when they come together will be really fun and enjoyable. Yeah, so I mean, let's talk a little bit about funding. You mentioned the budget. You mentioned talking about that. Well, transparency's king here. So one of the things that I'd like to mention really fast is we're going to take a look at our budget and kind of dive into that. I ask you to approach this with the understanding that budgets change and evolve as we kind of talk through this. This is our lowest cost budget. This is if, all we can raise is this amount, we'll still make the game, make it happen, and show the world how awesome it is. This also doesn't include any marketing spend or marketing budget in this one. This is really just a kickoff point for negotiations. We have about 5 or 6 different budgets that we plan to approach venture capital groups and approach publishers with, because transparency is king for me. So what I want to do is go to them and say, hey, this is the lowest we can do to make it happen. Here's the amount that we want to continue to raise to make it better and better and better each time. And that's part of what WeFunder here is. That's part of what, if we end up doing a Kickstarter in the future for kind of like pre-order sales, can be used for. That's why we're talking to venture capitals, VCs, and angels. Because even if we raise the lowest cost here on WeFunder or with the first publisher we speak to, we could still reach out to angels and VCs and say, hey, we've got the money we need to make the game. But imagine what we could do with some more. Imagine what we could do with some more key hires and kind of diving into that. And that's what we're going to talk about kind of today and throughout the rest of our time period, doing these dev updates with you all. All right, let's take a look at this budget. So this is a forecast for 2023 through 2024, quarter 3. And this is roughly what we think we'd need to complete the project. And I'm pretty confident that this could be the low end. When we work with clients, we tend to do two estimates. We do a low end and we do a high end estimate that provides a range, saying that we'll fall somewhere within that range. Because it's hard to tell. You know, bugs could come up, new things could come up. You know, the town that's currently being reworked. Later on, we could take a look at something else and say, yeah, this just didn't hit our quality standards. Instead of shipping something that we're all unhappy with, we'll need to refactor it and redo it. And I think that's something that companies and teams need to really kind of come into with the right mindset. It's also why at the bottom down here, you'll notice a contingency of 5%. That's for those kind of situations where it's like, hey, we need to stop and fix something. We need to change something. We need to make some alterations. And this is our low end estimate. And these numbers really aren't possible, in my opinion, outside of the Midwest area. You know, I've had the opportunity to talk to some California-based companies, some West Coast and East Coast-based companies. And indie studios out there struggle because they cannot build on the lower end budgets that you can here in the Midwest. Transparency is always king for me. If we have the opportunity, if we raise more money and we can pay our people more, that is absolutely one of the first conversations I want to have, is what can we do to make sure that our people are more comfortable, more happy, and ready to build this game. Right now, this is what we can do to make it happen. We're looking at about an $84,000 engineering budget, a $133,000 2D and 3D art budget, about $36,000 in concept art, about $30,000 in music and sound, and you'll hear some of the music in the recording if you're watching this on YouTube later. But let us know what you think of that music, by the way. It's done by a wonderful composer called Jocelyn Palmer. She is absolutely great at what she does. I'd love to hear you guys' feedback on some of the theme music and other music going on in the background here. Then we need some testing, QA, and certifications. We want to release on Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch, and we have to pass certifications for that, so that requires testing. And then our rent and utilities is actually really low. We're looking at about $26,000 over about 2 years for rent and all of our utilities. So that again is, we have a 900 square foot space here with 10 people working, all here for the electricity, internet, all of that. And so I think our costs are really low there at this point. I mean, leading us to a subtotal of about $323,000 with a contingency of 5% brings us to another $16,153, bringing us to a grand total of $339,203. Added a few dollars on there extra, I guess, in my head. But yes. What'd you say?
It's like contingency plan.
Contingency plan. A couple extra dollars, could save everything.
Yeah.
But I mean,
well, I was gonna say, I was really delighted to see that item on the budget, because I think that's a really small, but when you see it there, I think it kind of signals the carefulness that's being put towards they're conservative but very very as precise as they can be, right? These projections, the numbers you put together for the budget. There's a reason. I mean, a lot of really important things need that buffer. There's a reason why every car has a bumper on it, right? Yes. It's there to protect the important bits, right? It's there to provide that that little bit of a squish, and that's it's good to plan around for sure.
Absolutely. Well, and one of the other things that we talk about is this is what we think it'll take us to get to completion on the lowest end. Our goal is to shoot for more of a middle ground between the lowest and the highest budget, and that's where talking to publishers, VCs, angel investors, and other things could come in. One of the things that we've talked with a few VCs about is that they're interested in giving money to Azure Ravens, but not necessarily just for Ravenwood. They're interested in our initiative that funding in flyover states is kind of this program that I've been putting together, this package I've been putting together to help other indie studios raise funds, to walk the path that we've walked without facing the troubles that we faced along the road. How can they navigate what we had to learn on our own? And how can they go through this without having to kind of make the mistakes and missteps that we made along the road? And we've talked to some VCs and funding groups who are like, hey, we're really interested in supporting you guys, but what we want to see as well is that publishing effort being made. So we could look at doing something like that here in the near future as well, if we find the right venture capital partner. And then that money could also go towards helping Ravenwood kind of hit the mark as well, is that kind of conversation that we've had there, is bringing in other teams to fund their projects while at the same time making sure that our projects hit completion. The other thing that we don't kind of forecast here is any kind of pre-order sales, merchandise sales. None of that gets kind of forecasted in this budget. And so that could change things as well, because if we start pre-orders in Q2 of 2024, well, then Q3's costs aren't really part of the publishing budget, and those are all things that are conversations that we have with the publishing team. If in 2021 Q1 we decided to launch a Kickstarter to kind of hit some crazy stretch goals, or to do Kickstarters really served as kind of like pre-orders for successful games that are on their way. And it's a really good opportunity for us to start building a really strong community as well, because Kickstarter is something that a lot of gamers are following closely nowadays. They're not looking to fund projects that don't have any work done on them yet, or that are in the early stages, like you guys coming in with this kind of like, hey, here's our vision and our plan. They're looking for more of like a, does the game have a playable demo? Is it really close to completion? How long are we waiting for this? So I've always said that Kickstarter feels more like pre-order sales nowadays. But if we started that in Q1 of 2024, that could entirely change our projection as well, because we could have all new milestones, all new things like that. It could even push our timeline back a little bit from Q3 of 2024. But if we have, if we get some of this crazy funds that we're seeing in our genre being raised on Kickstarter, I think pushing our timeline to hit some additional milestones that the community wants to see just makes sense at the end of the day.
Corbin, do you think maybe for some of our newer investors that are supporting like via WeFunder, is there like a good high level comparison to kind of break down like how would you describe the differences between someone getting involved on Kickstarter and someone getting involved like on WeFunder? What do you feel like are the more distinct differences between those two ways of being a part?
Yeah, no, thank you. I love that. WeFunder is investing in the future of the business. It is for all of it. It is, you guys are here for the contract work, for the success of Planet Pink, the success of the Play to Learn metaverse there, the success of Goblin Forge and Ravenwood. You're here to kind of weather the storms that we face. Hopefully we never face anything like the COVID-19 pandemic again, but that means that you guys are here with us should we face that kind of thing. So that it's not just us alone kind of weathering that storm. We have our investment team from WeFunder there to support us and make it happen. With Kickstarter, you're supporting a singular product. Kickstarter is really just one product. So if we were to launch a Kickstarter for Ravenwood, they wouldn't be supporting Azure Ravens as a company. They'd be supporting the project of Ravenwood and its completion. And a lot of that is fine. Like that's really interesting and great in its own part. It helps to make the game happen. But with WeFunder, we get the opportunity to give back to our investors, hopefully in the future, through the form of our company's success being the same as your success as your guys' stock switches from a safe agreement that it is currently on WeFunder to actual like stake in the company as we go through and raise additional funds with venture capital groups.
And that's safe, SAFE.
Yes.
Just to clarify, yeah.
Yep,
so that's like a
agreement
specific type of
equity.
instrument.
Yep.
Right. Sorry, say that one more time.
It was a simple agreement for future equity is the method that we're currently using with WeFunder, so that we can lock in a higher valuation rate with venture capital later without kind of locking us in at the rate we are now. Because we think as Ravenwood comes to fruition and as our efforts with the funding in flyover states kind of pushes forward, we think we could see the value of the company continuing to rise as we make these big jumps and adjustments.
Yeah.
But
especially considering, sorry, if you don't mind me bragging on you a little bit more. So especially considering within like the WeFunder world, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to embellish. I'm a marketer. Okay, we have a penchant for embellishing things. But as far as the type of campaigns and the type of businesses that WeFunder even supports, even puts on, their platform, they're pretty discerning. They're pretty, because I mean their success, their survival as a startup, as a company, they got to pick the right horses, right, so to speak. They got to pick the right bets that they want to spend time on, and the process is very hands-on, especially as it should be when you're talking about equity, when you're talking about ownership in a company. This isn't eBay. This isn't it's very different from Kickstarter, where you're not buying a pre-order essentially, which is what Kickstarter became. We're talking about like being a partner, right? We were talking about investing, putting money in, and with the intent of having equity at the outcome. So I mean,
Yeah.
Azure Ravens was actually either among the first or maybe the first game studio of its type that actually WeFunder said, yes, we're gonna put this on the website.
Yeah, so when we started the conversation, there had been one other mobile game studio that had been on here, but they had been raising for a revenue share product. At this point, we're seeing more and more like VR projects get on WeFunder, and more things like that happen as the interest in the market starts to grow, which is really exciting for me personally. I'm a big believer that we can all find our way to rise without holding each other down. And I drive more and more people that I speak to. I'm like, hey, if you're looking to grow a company and a business and not just make a game, equity crowdfunding is the route to go. You get to talk to all these wonderful investors that we have on our team now. You get to hear their thoughts. You get their support. I mean, we have people who've reached out to me who've like, hey, I've invested in your company and I'm really interested in making sure that this game arrives in Hong Kong where I'm based. And I love that conversation, because for me, it's like, yeah, I would love that to happen. What special things do I need to do to make that happen? And kind of getting that insight that I didn't have before is just excellent. And I mean, WeFunder requires us to go through all of these different steps with the SEC. We have to go through and get our finances vetted to make sure that, we're reporting things correctly, that the business is on the up and up. I wish I could say that every Kickstarter project is on the up and up and transparent and available, but 5 minutes of Googling will show you that that's just not the case. I've yet to see anything like that really happen with WeFunder or even the equity crowdfunding crowd, because it's all based on this trust. And that's what drove me to it, is this trust and transparency so closely aligns to what we do here at Azure Ravens that I just was like, yeah, no, this makes sense to me. This is what we want to do here. And so that hit perfect for us.
That's amazing. Yeah, and not to mention the regulations, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you're selling a pre-order versus, going out and inviting folks to invest to become, for part ownership. I mean, yeah, the rules should be a little different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I a lot of people will talk about the extra steps that it takes to get on WeFunder as being tedious and extra. In my opinion, I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought for me that really screamed like confidence. WeFunder is really good about it. Our first WeFunder manager, Cody, was phenomenal, answered a ton of our questions and helped us to navigate a lot of it. And now we're working with a gentleman called Casey, and absolutely phenomenal group of people to work with. We've never really had any issues or concerns. Just a little hype up for the WeFunder crowd there. We absolutely love working with them there. And we had a couple of options, and we chose WeFunder because I really liked their transparency and straightforward nature of it. And a few of the other ones were like, oh yeah, well, we'll get you on a call to kind of tell you about it. WeFunder's like, hey, here's all the information on our main page. Here's how we protect our people. And I was like, you know what? I love that. Because I'm sure the other ones are just equally as great, but transparency for me is kind of what drives me to make the decisions I do. So, well, before we kind of end for the day, just as a reminder, we have the upcoming page revamp that's going to happen here soon, hopefully within the next week or so on WeFunder, so keep an eye out for that. If you haven't followed us yet on Facebook, Twitter, or on YouTube, make sure that you go and follow us there. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, or even LinkedIn watching this video, go check us out at wefunder.com/Azure Ravens. Check out what we're doing, even just follow along and get involved. I mean, not everybody can be an investor, but everybody can support us. That is something that I am a huge fan of. I had people reach out to us and say, oh man, I wish I could invest and be there for you. I was like, just being here, being a part of this journey with us is more than enough. For our investors who have been able to financially help us, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, you have no idea what this means to us, to have you on this journey with me to make this happen. I mean, our team has worked so diligently, and seeing the support and the success that we're reaching right now is just, it's overwhelming sometimes. I get very excited about it, and this team has worked so hard and grown so much over the last few years that seeing all of them get the opportunity to continue to do what they do here together means the world to me. Don't forget to keep on the lookout for our Goblin Forge VR early access announcement. We're hoping that comes here at the end of December. And keep a lookout for the trailer video that we kind of released there. And I'm not really supposed to mention this, but we might be having a 30-second Ravenwood trailer coming out here in the next month or so to kind of give you guys some sneak peeks of the in-engine stuff that we've been working on in UE5. If you look at Connor's face right now of him smiling, he's going to be like, oh God, what did you just do? But I think a little pressure never hurts anybody.
Everyone's learning something new today.
Absolutely. Antonio, Connor, do you guys have any final notes for us?
Nope. Just
No?
looking forward to the next call. I appreciate
Awesome,
everybody tuning in and checking in.
Alrighty, everybody. Have a great rest of your time here in December, and don't ever hesitate to reach out to us. Shoot us messages on WeFunder, leave us comments below on this video or on the blog post, or even just on our WeFunder page. If you have any questions that you want answered, leave those as comments below as well, and next month we'll make sure that Antonio kind of proposes those questions to us, and we can chunk through them from there. Alrighty. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I look forward to talking to you guys again in our January Dev Update.